and welcome to this tutorial series where I'm going to show you how to make these very trippy kind of aesthetic edits. So these edits are going to they're going to require a lot of skills and a lot of different sort of tools inside DaVinci Resolve, which is the editor we're going to be using. And so I'm not going to be going through how to make one right away. We're going to be basically going through first the basics of Resolve, what it is, how to work with it, and we're going to make sort of smaller edits, different edits, and make sort of tools to build up to making something like what you're seeing on screen right now. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get DaVinci Resolve. DaVinci Resolve. And then once you get DaVinci Resolve, I'm going to come down to free download. So right now, the latest version is 17, and the newest version is going to be 18, but it's going to be beta, so it's going to be a bit unstable. So go ahead and click whatever you want. I would recommend editing on Windows because Windows makes it easier to use a NVIDIA GPU, and NVIDIA GPUs make rendering a lot faster. Linux, I would not recommend because Linux, the drivers are not very good on Linux. Like, you would have to remove your open source drivers, use proprietary drivers, and this can screw up a bunch of other things as well. So the support's a bit more unstable. The only like, if you're a tech nerd, you'd understand what this means. And then for Mac, I would not suggest. I wouldn't really suggest it. I think it's a good editor, but I think it's better on Windows because Mac you can't get the same. You can't get an NVIDIA GPU on a Mac. So I recommend whatever you want, but I'm on Windows. I'm going to click that, and you're going to go in, sign up. You don't have to put in your real information or whatever, but just you got to click register and download. You're going to get it. It's completely free, absolutely free. And then once you do that, well, you're set. So I'm going to minimize this, open the DaVinci Resolve, and as you can see, so here's what this is what it looks like once you open it. These are all my projects. None of these, you're not going to have any of these. It's going to be empty except for this untitled project. So very quickly, before you hop in to create a new project, you want to right click and you want to click project settings, and then here we're going to go and set the settings. So this timeline format, this is going to be the resolution of all the clips in our timeline. They're going to be set to this resolution, and when we're rendering, it's going to automatically render out to this resolution. Video monitoring, this is going to be basically upscaled or downscaled from our timeline. So right now it's at 1080p at 24 frames per second. If I were to set this at 720p, all that means is when I'm actually playing the videos back, so when I'm watching them, the timeline resolution is going to be 1920. So all the processing in the background is going to be 1920 by 1080. But when I actually play it, it's going to be playing 720 video. So this can actually speed up a lot of your processing, especially on slower machines. Now, in terms of frame rate, I'm going to select 24 frames per second because that's, cinema standard. It's great for your eyes, great at capturing sort of vision or movement at 24 frames per second. 60 frames per second is very buttery smooth. I really like making that, but it's also a lot more intensive. So there's a lot more frames. It can take a little bit longer because you have more frames to go through, especially if you're doing these short frame by frame animations. And so just for the sake of time, I'm going to select 24 frames per second because things go by faster. Next up, you have this optimized media and render cache. You want to make sure that you take advantage of these, especially on a slower machine, because you can really speed up your workflow. So first thing, you have proxy media resolution. This proxy media, basically, you can take your clips and you can render a proxy version, which means instead of working at 1080p, you can render like a 720p or something like that, or a 480p version, and just work with that just to see how the effect looks. And then when it comes to actually rendering, you don't render the proxy media, you would render something else, right? So you can choose the format. Honestly, what the defaults are fine. So you have the high quality X, high quality, standard quality, right? LB is going to be the lowest. So select whatever you want. for the optimized media resolution, this you can use to you can generate optimized media for better playback. Honestly, whatever you want is fine. It's going to be the same as this proxy media format. And then render cache, I like to select uncompressed. It does take a bit more space, but it's honestly looks nicer. So this next up, we have this enable background caching. And by default, is 5 seconds, as you saw. What this means is after 5 seconds of inactivity, DaVinci Resolve is automatically going to start rendering. It's going to start rendering everything. And 5 seconds is a while, especially if you're going to be doing an edit that's going to take a long time. 5 seconds it adds up, right? So I always like to set it at 1 second, but that might be a little too fast. You can set it at 2 or whatever. Next up is this automatically cache transitions and automatically cache composites in user mode. We'll get into what user mode is later, but yeah, I select those on. Next is the working folders. These are automatically generated. This is where all the caches and all your renders are gonna automatically be saved to until you render your final output. And then this frame interpolation, you don't have to touch it. It's just like, do you do any interpolating between frames? So if you're familiar with After Effects, this would be kind of like your Twixer. This is kind of how you would do Twixer in DaVinci Resolve. So we set all of these things, right? So for my purposes, it's all fine. This is all that we have to touch. You don't have to touch anything else right now. So I'm gonna go save. So now I'm gonna open a new project. And we open the new project. So it starts off in the cut section. So it starts off in the cut menu. Now, I've never used the cut menu, to be honest. Like, there's things you can do with it. For my purposes, I never have to touch it. It's not that common, but the vast majority of your time is going to basically be spent within the middle three. So you have, if you notice, you have media, cut, edit, fusion, color, fairlight, and deliver. I'm gonna go through each one by one. So media, so cut, I honestly don't really know. But media, this is just where you select the media pool. So the media, you're really only gonna be here like at the start, honestly. Like you're gonna go cut, you just go media, select all your clips. So here I go here. You can see all the users workstation, and I have videos, and I'm gonna go Counter-Strike, and we're gonna use all these clips. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a bin. I'm gonna call it videos. You go right click, new bin. I'm gonna go for music, and then I'm gonna go new bin. I'm gonna go CC. This stands for compound clips. We'll talk about those later, and this one's gonna be renders. So, video-wise, videos. I enter in the videos folder. I click here, and then I'm not gonna change the frame rate because I want it to be at 24 frames per second. These are like at 60 or 30 frames. Music-wise, I already have a song chosen out. So you want to find a way to download a song. I use this tool called 4K YouTube to MP3, but the song I'm going to be using is this one. I've used it before, and so CC is going to be, so none of these are going to be touched. So that's really, so this is basically the only times you're going to enter the media pool. Next, we're going to go edit. So edit, this is what you might be familiar with if you used any other editor like Final Cut or Premiere Pro. This is what the edit is going to look like. Now there's Fusion. Fusion has its own thing. We're going to talk about Fusion later. Next is going to be color. Color, it's honestly, color is really great. There's a lot of cool things you can do with the color tab. And then Fairlight is like for audio processing. It's like a digital audio workstation, but it's pretty limited. Honestly, I've never used it. And then deliver is where you're gonna render your final project. So we'll talk about rendering later at the end. Right now, obviously finishing the media pool. There's nothing to do anymore after we do this. So next up, we're gonna go into the edit tab. So we're gonna talk very quickly about the menu, what everything looks like, and I'll talk to you about useful hotkeys. So up here, you're gonna notice we have this thing called media pool. I can select and deselect it. I like to keep it open all the time. Now we have effects, which you can keep open or closed. We have all this edit index. I never use sound library. I never use, this is just kind of increases the size of your timeline. This is the timeline. This is what that's called. Here's the effects. Here we have the inspector on the right here, metadata, and a mixer. The inspector is going to be pretty useful. We're going to get more into that. I have barely used the metadata at all. But inspector is mainly where you're going to do some stuff. At least when you're doing any editing in the edit tab, you're either going to be doing it in the timeline, inspector, and you're going to be dragging from effects, right? So in effects, we have a few things. We have video transitions, so we can use this to do transitions between stuff. As you can see, I don't have any clips, so it's not going to show anything. So I'm going to I'm just going to grab some clips to show you. So if you see, we have all these dissolves going, right? So you have this blur dissolve, whatever, this arrow iris. These are like some pre-finished transitions. There's some cool ones. If I go to this all the way to the bottom, there's this fall and bounce ones, there's circles. There's this camera shake thing, which looks kind of cool. There's a whole bunch of cool transitions. This tunnel light one's kind of interesting. You don't have to use a lot of these. I don't use them. I like to make my own. Especially for the trippy edits, you're gonna want to make your own kind of stuff to keep that flow. But these are not bad to use. So audio transitions are cool. Titles. So audio transitions, that's gonna be for the audio. What you're gonna do is you're gonna drag these under. So to use a transition, you're gonna basically drag it over the clip. So it helps. So if I were to so automatically when you drag the clips, actually it's going to be you can select one or the other, and they won't be synced up. But if you select this linked selection or Control Shift L, as soon as I grab it, it's going to automatically select the audio piece underneath it. So I'm just going to do that just to get something going. So here I can add this additive dissolve, and then I can add this crossfade transition on the audio. And so I honestly, I don't really use these a lot, as I said, but the audio transitions I do use time to time. Next up, we have titles. This is just like text, so text samples and stuff like that. So these can be actually pretty useful time to time. I haven't had opportunities to really use them, but you basically click and drag, put it under here, and you can say, title, right? You can say things. Next up, we're going to do generators. There's some interesting generators here. So you have like this noise gradient, this paper thing, texture background, this contours. You have a lot of interesting sort of generators. The one that I find I use the most often is just solid color. It's literally a background. Right, so that's all it is. Very simple. Then there's effects, so you can add these effects onto. These are kind of like, so some of these are only in the paid version, but so some of these like the binoculars or the DVE is not bad. Night vision looks cool, but I find I'm using either the fusion composition or adjustment clip, and we'll get into what these ones are. These are the main ones that you're going to be using. Honestly, none of these. I don't use the fusion effects very often. Actually, I don't think I've ever used them. And so next up we have this open effects. This is where you're going to apply effects directly onto things. So you can apply like a radio blur, this despell thing. There's these color effects, but then there's also light rays. There's quite a lot of them. Some of them are going to be only in the paid version of DaVinci Resolve. Others are going to be, free. So some of the ones that are pretty interesting is like this watercolor, makes it look like a cartoon. Motion blur. Oh no, that one doesn't. There's fast noise, film damage. That one kind of looks cool. I've used quite a few of those. One of them that I really like to use is called Prism Blur. It's right here. This one I really like to use because there's kind of like this this diffraction with the red and the green, the chromatic aberration. That looks really cool. You can do some cool effects with it. But that's all for that. Audio effects, I sometimes use. I use that when I do voiceovers and stuff like that. So like there's noise reduction and stuff. And honestly, for these tutorials, you're never gonna use audio effects. So that's that. And in the Expector tab, we have, well, we can zoom. So we can select their zoom. We can actually move our thing around. And this is actually its position in the timeline. So this isn't actually like moving, because we can actually move where the video is. But this is actually going to be the position like in the actual footage. So you can actually like put two videos on top of each other with that. So we have this, you can change the rotation angle. Anchor point is just going to change. So if we change the anchor point, it's going to change where we zoom. And then these you'll notice this circle with the plus. That's going to basically automatically reset everything. So if I move this up and down, I select this thing to reset, and then I can crop the videos using this. I can increase the softness of my crop. Default 0. Okay. And then there's dynamic zoom. Dynamic zoom is interesting. I've never had to use it for anything. At least for these edits, I've never had to use dynamic zoom. So I'm not the best at using it. Because it's not really the best to use for the edit. So you can do some cooler things. So composite, what composite means is when you're playing two videos on top of each other, it's how does it overlay. So add, it adds all the colors. Color, burn means it burns sort of the colors. You can do some interesting things where you can kind of overlay things. Like it's good for overlays, but for the most part, you're honestly, unless you're actually applying an overlay, you're gonna just leave it at normal. Speed change, I've never actually, this is new, I haven't used it. Stabilization, I've never needed to use that. Lens correction, I think this is studio. Yeah, it's studio, so don't even touch it. But retime and scaling is actually gonna be something that is gonna come up a lot in these edits, because what it does is you wanna select optical flow. And what that's actually gonna do is it's going to, cause your thing to you're going to do frame interpolation. So it's going to actually interpolate the position. So if you notice, if I select and I go frame by frame, it's going to be like a jump in a knife. If I select the optical flow, there's like almost like a fading effect, right? And so you can see that a lot with this text. You can see how the text is kind of all glitchy. That's because it's starting to do some motion estimation. This is where this motion estimation comes in. So speed warp is going to be the best, but it's going to be super slow, and I think it requires the studio version. Enhanced better is honestly pretty good. So if you notice, like there's and honestly, like when you're playing it back at the normal frames per second, it doesn't look like anything's changed. What the main benefit of optical flow is going to be basically once you start slowing down like for your videos. So I'm not even gonna worry about that. Set all that to default. The first thing we want to do is we select the timeline. I'm actually gonna drag the timeline, because when you create the timeline, once you drag videos in, it creates the timeline in whatever bin you're inside of. I like to have the timeline in the master bin. And you can also create new timelines here. So if I were to right click, I can go right click and create new timeline. It's basically the exact same thing as I just have a second timeline that I can move to. And honestly, I never use that function, but it is there. So what I'm gonna do is I actually want to start getting like a short little edit. So we're gonna piece together, we're gonna make a very quick edit now at this point, using everything we've learned more or less. Nothing too fancy, but we're gonna get into how we can make something more interesting in the later episodes. So right off the bat, I'm going to press I. This is gonna select an in range, okay? So I just want to pick, I'm not gonna pick too long. So I like it here. I'm gonna select I. This is gonna be our in range, and then I'm gonna select. This is the drop, and I'm sorry this might be a little loud, but I'm going to select the drop, and I'm going to go a little bit beyond the drop, so like right here. So Now I select this in and out range and I click and drag, and as you see, I only dragged the small portion. I didn't actually drag the full thing. If I wanted more of it, I can come here, I can just click on the end and I can drag however long I want, right? So next step is I'm going to make markers. So I want to select some using what are called markers. So if I press M, I place a marker, and you can see that anywhere on the timeline, I actually can see this marker here. So I'm going to go back to the marker. If I press M again, it opens up a menu where I can change the color. And I like to change the color, so green is kind of like these background things, background elements. I like to set red as the kick, and then the yellow as like the snare drums, right? So now at this point, you want to basically start making a bunch of markers to mark important parts in the audio, and then you're going to use that to sync up the thing. So go to your edit. So here's this big screen. I'm going to set this as like a pink. It's going to say the drop's coming. And so I press the arrow keys left and right to go in between frames, and I go frame by frame until I feel like until I can hear like a kick, like a boom. So right here, big kick, and because this is the start of the drop, I put a big dark pink in there, right? And then so and obviously, like, you're going to want to do this for the whole track. So, and one thing to keep in mind though is that you can't actually copy markers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this solid color, and I'm going to just put it in between these. I get these things, and basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to put these in between all my markers. And then what I can do is I can press A, and then so A is going to be selection mode. That's just like what the default is. But if I press B, it opens up the cut tool, this blade, and I can cut. So that's what I'm using. So what I can do is I can click and I can drag this to wherever, right? So I can basically keep these markers going. So this is going to be more useful when you have a much larger project. Don't, so I'm not even going to worry about it, but it's just going to be there. So what I like to do is that once I get these, so I'm just going to worry about making the rest of the edit. And then one thing, sometimes you might find it's annoying because the playhead is going to snap to the markers, right? So what you can do is you can press N or select this magnet tool, and it's going to remove the snapping, and it's just going to allow you to go frame by frame. But I like to keep it on. So this is going to be the start of a new thing, so I'm going to put purple there. So I'm going to come through here, and I'm going to basically cut. And then I would basically just grab and then drag this over, and then I would go basically to all of these and then select and then put the appropriate marker there. And so that's fine. Once I do this, I press Alt. You want to press the arrow key to put this up, and then I press this disable video track, so I don't have to see this at all, because it's going to start blocking the videos that we're going to put. So I'm going to grab some videos. I want to grab maybe some cool shots. So let's see, what did I find? So this is, I think there's an audio over this, so I'm not gonna. Okay, so I'm playing with the Scar. Okay, so kill right there. So what I did actually, so you can press J to go backwards, and you can press J multiple times to speed up. You can press L to go forwards, and then you can press L multiple times to speed that up as well. So L and J is going to be how you go forwards, if you track forwards. See, I'm going 8 times. I press J 3 times. So start here, go all the way until I get the kill. Track back a little bit.
Hello.
So that's going to be my first kill. So I'm going to select, I'm going to deselect link section. I'm going to delete the audio. I don't want the audio, right? The audio doesn't help me sync. And so what I want to do is I want to find the point where I kill him. So right there. Oops. And then I want to select the footage. And I press M. Right? And then that's going to put a marker on the footage. And what I can do is I can align these together. So I kind of like the house before. So like, right? So very simple, right? And so I kill him, and then at this point you want to transition. So you want to transition to another clip. So this is going to be the next footage. Let's see, where is this guy? We want to go until I get the kill. Oops, and then I go back and kill him. Oh, right. So now I grab it. I want to put this on the second ring, kill the audio. So where I kill him is going to be right here. Set an M. I want this to be on beat, so I'm going to go here. So that aligns pretty nicely. And then keep going forwards with all these things. So let's see, when's the next kill? Okay, I die. Here's the next kill. Right here. Right here. So I'm going to grab this, put this here, and we're going to see when I can track this next kill. So it's going to be right about. Oh, look at that. It's right on cue. So we have the snare. Okay, snare, and then we're going to move. Before, I should have mentioned this as well. When it comes to transitions, you want it, there's a specific timing. So for 24 frames per second, I like to use 5 frames. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is 10, so that's a little too long, but this one's fine. It's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? So you have kind of like different tiers. So 5 is going to be it's going to be a slower transition. 3 is going to be a quicker transition. And then 10 is going to be a little long. So it depends. So you want to give yourself enough time so that it doesn't look too fast. Because if it looks too fast, it's going to look very messy. It's going to look very noisy. There's not enough time for the other person to process it, right? So you definitely want there to be enough time for the other person to see what's going on before you transition. So that's about at 24 frames per second. That's about 5 frames. At 60 frames per second, it's different. At 60 frames per second, it's about 8, I think. 8 is like a fast transition, and then 12 is like a slower transition. So keep that in mind. You want to make sure you have the right frame sort of gaps. Otherwise, it's going to look very noisy. It's going to look too fast. So we're almost at the end. I'm going to do 2 more. So I kill them, and then I dive in that clip. Let's see where I go. Waiting. Okay, kill this fool. Same guy, actually. So he comes in out of nowhere. There, that's actually nice. I kill him there. So I'm going to select here. And then I'm going to pull this back because I want this to align with that. So, I click. And then I can... Maybe I pull this back like that. See oh, that looks nice. And then, so what I'm going to do, instead of a kill here, I'm just going to transition. So I'm going to have kill, and I'm going to swap to the next clip. So next clip is, okay, I die. Kill them there, okay. So I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to select the marker. Okay, so kill them about there. And then I'm gonna just come back. Come on, I want to select that there, here. Maybe I pull this back and I kill him on the snare, and then that gives me enough time to, I can do another transition or something. Yeah, that looks good. And then here, I'm going to do, I don't know. There's like not a lot of time, so you can notice it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's not enough time for me. Like I could do like kind of like these little bits here. So 3. Oh right, I forgot. This is at 60 frames. So 1, 2, 3. Oops. So here I'm gonna go here and then pull that back. Oh, oops, what did I do? Oh, I pressed, so I pressed the button, I don't know what I pressed. But I go back here, so I kill the audio. I'm going to just here, so, and then, oops. Yeah, right there, and then I'm going to basically bring this in. Yeah, that's fine. That's all that I really need to do for now. Do a little intro. I'm just gonna actually just drag this out. Okay, as you can see, a very quick edit that we made, and that's about it. That for this episode, this is episode 1. As I said, we're just getting the hand of actually making something and getting the hand of this new environment that we're in. The next episode is we're actually going to look about taking this specific edit and we're going to actually make it look a little nicer. We're going to add some some effects and transitions now. So yeah, so catch you now.